Hi, and welcome to Rock and Metal Invasion. My name is Steve. Coming up on the show today, I'm going to be talking about the band Hinder. So, Hinder is an American hard rock band formed in the early 2000s. They put out six studio albums, and I actually happen to have all five of their first studio albums on vinyl. And I have their sixth one on CD. That one has not yet been released on vinyl. Now, for a while there, I didn't have their debut album on vinyl. You can believe it or not, it does actually exist on vinyl when the album was initially released, which is a bit of a surprise. You wouldn't have expected in 2005 when vinyl really wasn't popular like it is now for that band to have a vinyl release of that album, but it did exist, but it was super rare, very hard to find, and was going for very big money. So I didn't have that one on vinyl, but Real Gone Music, as they often do, have come to the party, and they have recently reissued this album on vinyl. So I now have the first five albums on vinyl. And like I say, the sixth one on CD. They've only put out six albums. They've put out a few singles recently. And I think they are planning on putting out a new album this year. But that's now. Let's go back in the past just a little bit and talk about this band. Now, I don't usually profile bands from the 2000s that formed in the 2000s very much. Quite often, I'm looking at bands who have formed in the 80s, early 90s, that hard rock, hair metal type band. But this band actually does have some links to that scene and that sound. They've been compared to bands like Motley Crue and Aerosmith. So they formed in the early 2000s in Oklahoma City. Was initially Cody Hansen, Austin Winkler, and Joe Garvey, who formed the band. And they're I guess the three main guys initially in the band, and then they got Mike Roden and um, Mark King in joining the band. So they had five piece, and they did actually put out a EP in 2003 that was called Far From Close. That got some label interest, and of course, then this album comes out in 2005. So I think what really helped, though, too, when this album came out, is getting some songwriting and production help by a guy called Brian House. I think he's a Canadian. He's had some success with some other similar bands who came out post grunge, modern rock, whatever type of bands, whatever you want to call them. It came out in the sort of early 2000s. I know that he's worked with bands like Hailstorm and had some success with them, because that's a pretty successful band. But anyway, they got together with him and did songwriting, and he was the producer. And this album, like I say, came out in 2005. Now, triple platinum, so really successful album. Initially, the first single was Get Stoned, which was an interesting choice for first single. But I guess, it is a good song, and they're really playing up the bad boy image perhaps a little bit, and the party image, which really wasn't a thing. If you're thinking about, of course, they're sort of labeled as a post grunge band, but grunge was like partying and having fun. That really was not the image, right? But these guys are not like that at all, and that's why I would sort of that really even to label them with grunge would be, I think, not really completely correct. I guess modern rock for sure. Here's a picture of them on the back. I've got the CD because I initially, of course, only could get this on CD. Now I've got the vinyl, but initially I just had it on CD. And if you have a look at the back of the CD, you can see they're just laughing, having a good time. And that's the kind of image of the band, this party sort of stuff. Yes, they had some ballads, and of course, we're going to talk about, I guess, the big ballad that really broke them big time, Lips of an Angel. But yeah, they also had some good hard rock songs. So Get Stoned was the first single that rocked pretty hard. There's some other good songs on here that rock hard. I actually really like my go-to song for here is for this album's Homecoming Queen. Reminds me a little bit of the Guns N' Roses song Sweet Child of Mine, just a little bit, just a little bit. But I like that song. There's also another single they released. I think this was a single. By the way, I like that one and How Long. But of course, Lips of an Angel, that was the one that went to number one, I think, on the charts, and really had a lot to do with the success of the band. In fact, it was so successful, as bands often do when they have some success, they reissued the album. This actually came out as a deluxe edition. I don't have that. But when they reissued it, they had some bonus tracks. A couple of them were believe it or not, they did Born to Be Wild, which really has been covered way too many times. There's even a music video for that. And I was looking at it on YouTube, and it's got like 10 million views somehow. I don't know how that has happened, but yeah, very popular. So there we go. I don't know what I'm talking about, perhaps. Maybe it was a good idea to cover that song. But and also Take Me Home Tonight, the Eddie Money song, they do a version of that. I think there might even be a music video for that one as well. So if you get the bone, those bonus tracks, unfortunately, are not on the reissue. And I have to say, I just recently got this. Cost me close to 80 New Zealand dollars to buy it. And yeah, great to have, but there is nothing. There is nothing. There's no insert. It's just a record. I don't know. It just seems a little pricey, real gone. A little pricey. Anyway, um, so first album, really successful. Like I said, there's some bonus tracks as well, and yeah, some songs on it I really do like. I guess for me, picking up that debut album on vinyl is sort of just again completing the collection a little bit because now I've got all their first 5 albums on vinyl. So this is, I guess, now not that difficult to get unless you want an OG. But the other albums are actually kind of difficult, especially albums 2, 3, and 4. And I do actually happen to have these on vinyl. Now you look these up on Discogs, and there are hundreds of dollars to if they are even available. So this is their second album, Take It to the Limit. Now, when this came out, I'm actually saying this is like 2010 that this one comes out, and I'm buying vinyl. I've just started getting back into vinyl, so it wasn't a big deal to buy this. Trying to buy this now, it's not cheap, but it wasn't a big deal to get this. I picked it up, and now, like I say, it's quite an expensive album if you want to buy it, but a lot of money, I think, is now going into this band because they've had some success. Like I say, I had to pay so much for this recent reissue. Look at all the stuff you get with this. It's a double vinyl. It's look, you take this off, and this when this came out didn't cost me much at all, right? Take this off, and you get a little bit more of a view of the guys and the ladies in the background, the mansion and the cars. Actually, I think the ladies have now lost their clothes since I've taken that initial slip off. And look at there's a gatefold here with the ladies sort of having a good time. Better watch out; it might get me censored. But yeah, so they're really playing up their image, party sort of band sound, and when you think about it, quite similar to the sort of hair metal scene that and image that you saw in the 80s. So yeah, Take It to the Limit. This is their second album. Like I said, previous album had been gone triple platinum, been really successful. This one doesn't do quite as well, but I think it's their best album. Again, they've got Brian Howes coming in as producer and songwriter, and there's just so many good songs on here. For me, my go-to songs, Use Me, that's really good. Loaded and Alone, Up All Night, really good. Take It to the Limit, the title track actually features Mick Mars. Heaven Sent is a good one. But there's even a couple of songs that the B-sides or extra tracks that are really good as well, worth seeking out. They're not on here, obviously, but there's some really good songs on this album. I think it's a really, really good album, and even better than their debut. But it doesn't do quite so good. I think it debuted at number 37, I think. Or no, sorry, debuted at number 4. It's the next album that debuted at 37. Debuted at number 4 on the charts, which makes sense because it's following on from a successful album. But it doesn't sort of stick around for too long. They don't really have that big hit. Obviously, again, they're really looking for another Lips of an Angel hit, which they don't really get. But still, a good result with the way it debuts on the album charts. And like I say, I think it's a really good album. Their third album is called All American Nightmare. And as I said, this actually debuted at number 37 on the Billboard charts. So it's not bad, but again, they're not getting that big hit. And I talked about the way that the band are portrayed in the pictures of the album. Starting to look a little bit more serious. The mood of the music is definitely a little darker, a little heavier even. Two Sides of Me, All American Nightmare. Good songs. I really like that. I like Hey Ho, Waking Up the Devil, Red Tail Lights. That's another one I like. But this one doesn't, obviously, again, it's sort of diminishing returns, not doing as well as the previous album, or definitely, of course, the debut album. But again, not an easy one to get on vinyl, so nice to have this one on vinyl. Again, I'm just buying it back in the day at the time because I'm back into vinyl. Gatefold's not as exciting as the previous album, but there the guys are. Again, they're not really looking quite so happy here. It's just a little bit more serious. And it's a little bit like that for their fourth album, Welcome to the Freak Show. Another good album. Again, doesn't debut as high as the previous album, so there's sort of it's dropping every release. It's getting a little bit lower in the charts. Welcome to the Freak Show. Same lineup though, all the same guys are all still together at this point. And Save Me is a really good song. It's one of their heaviest songs I think that they've done. Freak Show's good. Again, they've got there's a few ballads on here. They're going for obviously some success. They're again trying to replicate the success they had with Lips of an Angel. Now this album and the previous one, they didn't have Brian Howes, and I think that possibly has hindered them a little bit. I think he offered a lot there with the songwriting, especially. But they've actually got a couple of guys, a couple of brothers actually, I think, who are helping them with the songwriting. What are their names? The Warren brothers, yeah. So they're like actually country artists, but they come in and do some songwriting for this album and the previous album. And like I say, it's a good album, but it's not as good as their second album, and it doesn't have the success that they had on this first album. But still solid. Now, the vocalist Austin, he has some substance abuse issues and ends up leaving the band, going to rehab, leaves the band. Now, he has put out some music over the last sort of few years, but at this stage, he has not returned to the band. So when album number 5 came along, they had to get a new vocalist. So the fifth album is When the Smoke Clears. Now, initially, they had a guy called Nolan Neal come in to be the vocalist for the band. And he does have some songwriting credits on this album. However, for whatever reason, it didn't work out. And the guy that they were working with, I think he was like producing the album and songwriting with them, Marshall Dutton, actually ends up then becoming the vocalist. So Marshall Dutton is the new vocalist, and he's the singer on this album. But like I say, he's also the producer and he's helping with the songwriting. There's some good songs on here. I like Rather Hate Than Hurt, Hit the Ground. But Dear Dead to Me, that's a good one. I think I do prefer the albums where they had Austin as the vocalist, but it's still a solid album. Interestingly, too, Nolan Neal goes on to perform and compete in the American Idol show and The Voice, I think, as well. And I think he does. I think it's to the quarterfinals of American Idol, so he does pretty well. Sadly, he also had some substance abuse issues, and I think he passed away of a drug overdose in 2022, which is very sad. Only like 41 years of age, so really tragic. But so anyway, so Marshall Dutton, he's now the vocalist. I think the band is, it's still the same band, still got the same 4 guys that started off in the band, but they've now got a new vocalist. And then so that's 5 albums they've put out, and that was their first one with Marshall. Their 6th album also has Marshall on vocals, and like I say, this is not on vinyl that I know of anyway. It's called The Rain, and I have a CD version of this. Now, not as good as their previous albums, I didn't think, although I do really like Remember Me. I think that's a good song. A couple other good songs on here, but I must admit it's not one I really play a lot. But not bad. I mean, they're a very consistent band. You get what you expect from Hinder, and you definitely do get that. You get what you expect on this one. Their album, this one came out in 2017, I think, and that's been the last full-length album that they have put out, and we're in 2025. So it's been pretty quiet, but they have still been sort of active and touring with their vocalist Marshall. I think a couple of the guys have left the band, and Joe and Cody are still in the band, and of course they've got Marshall, and I think they brought in a couple of different guys recently. They, I think, got disrupted a little bit, as a lot of bands did, by what happened with COVID. And they were about to actually, I think in 2020, go out and do a a 15th anniversary tour where they were going to play Extreme Behavior in its full in concert, but I don't think that happened. They've put out some singles though quite recently and are planning on putting out a new album very soon this year. And there's even actually recently been a picture of one of the band members with Austin, the former vocalist, in the studio. So who knows? Maybe there's going to be some sort of a reunion coming up. But yeah, like I say, there's been I think 3 songs they've put out recently. So I like a couple of them. They're not too bad, but doesn't sound like they've changed their sound in any way really at all. Like I say, it's been a while too. It's 2017 is the last studio album, so probably about time they put out a new one. So if you're into the band, you can look for that one to come out soon. All right, so there we go. So that's my profile of the band Hinder. If you like this type of content, make sure you hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you later. All right, see ya.